What's up, Internet? Coach Dennis here. Join me as I complete day one of my off-season training. This is a hybrid training program. As a hybrid athlete, my primary focus is on sprint triathlon. However, speaking more broadly, I am interested in what the human body can do in the 1 hour time frame. So whether you're a multi-sport athlete or looking to get into high rocks, the principles of this program could help you. Or if you're like my buddy Cotter, who I'm training to grow his arms, grow his legs, get fit, jacked, and tan all by the end of the year, this program could help you as well. Now, an interesting thing I want to talk about today is what should base training be? Most people consider the primary objective of base training to be cardiovascular training, meaning creating a big cardiovascular base. Now, I'm not arguing against that. However, what if you've already got a good cardiovascular base? I just spent the majority of my year creating a very robust cardiovascular base. If you're somebody getting into high rocks coming from an endurance background, you may already have a strong cardiovascular base. But what you need to focus on is power. And I'm coming from this from the angle of a strength and conditioning coach, where the higher the power base, then the lower the relative efforts of your races. So this year I trained up. My primary focus was on sprint nationals, the USA Triathlon Sprint Nationals. And I had my best race ever, and credit where credit is due. I hired a triathlon coach who significantly increased my cardiovascular base and ultimately led me to some of my fastest times. In fact, all of my fastest times for the swim, the bike, and the run. But I felt my limiter was not my cardiovascular system. It was, in fact, my muscular endurance and my ability to sustain power. And I know this from my hamstrings seizing up at the end of the bike and just my legs feeling heavy on the run. So anyway, my point being is that the intent of this off-season training program is to cultivate power. And it's also to see what I can do in a shorter amount of time. Now, if I had all the time in the world, maybe I would take the classic cardiovascular base approach. But I'm having a baby. Well, my wife's having a baby next month. And I know that my time's going to be limited. So I am boldly taking an experimental approach towards base training. And so my intent is to utilize concepts of classic hybrid training, which means really looking at powerlifting programs, looking at endurance training programs, pulling out the most essential workouts and paring them all down into manageable chunks. My intent with this program is to do 5 30-minute bike workouts per week with varying intervals, and to do alternating days of strength training with a few mixed modal days, so like CrossFit or run intervals spliced in between, and then with one long run on the weekend, which, by the way, still will build a cardiovascular base. And the thing I really want to talk about today is creating power on the bike. So if there's cyclists out there, maybe tell me if I'm wrong or tell me if I'm crazy. But I've set up a preliminary program that I will be attempting on the bike. So it's just 30 minutes, 5 days a week with varying intervals. So always a 10-minute warm-up, and then day 1 will be 30-second intervals, day 2, 1 minute, day 3, 2 minute, day 4, 4 minute, and day 5, 8 minutes. So varying length intervals. And the basic rules I'm going to set up for myself is that the recovery periods will be intuitive. So I will always, I'm not going to stick to a standard time. Instead, I'm always going to wait for my heart rate to get back into zone 1 before starting the next interval. So today, after a 10-minute warm-up, I did a 30-second all-out sprint, and then I recovered. Now, the other rule for recovery is I need to maintain my RPM above 75. I was shooting more for 80, but I noticed my heart rate was just sticking above the zone, so I think 75. Again, this is experimental, so hopefully I'll be able to translate this into some more usable intervals for you all. But yeah, that's the idea. So that ended up netting me about 4 30-second all-out sprints today. That last all-out sprint, I got my wattage over 700, which honestly, I felt like puking for about 15 minutes after that session. So definitely some adaptations going on there. And then we hit shoulders today, and it was a huge win. You know, my shoulder's been really bugging me in the past, but I've been doing my rehab work. Was able to push overhead with military press and incline bench. Finished off with some basic front side lateral raises, and it was a killer day. So, yeah, follow along. I think we're going to do some really amazing stuff this off season. We'll show my progress and Cotter's progress, and maybe y'all can jump in too. All right, y'all. Peace.